There's been a lot of movement in the transfer portal lately, specifically at the quarterback position. And when you talk about the portal, guys, of course, in football, the quarterback position, that is what moves the needle, right? Because it's the most important position on the field. And while it's nice to pick up this wide receiver here or that tight end or this defensive back, it is these quarterbacks. There's a reason they are getting the game-changing money. They're getting money in the seven figures. A good starting quarterback, right, as Matt Rule over at Nebraska talked about. Good starting quarterback cost you $1 million, $1.5 million, $2 million. I want to talk the latest quarterback movement because there's been a ton over the last 24, 48 plus hours or so. We've seen Riley Leonard go from Duke to Notre Dame. He actually made that commitment public this morning. I think picking up a really quality, valuable NFL caliber QB1. Of course, they had Sam Hartman this past year for the second consecutive year. Notre Dame is going to the ACC, I think showing kind of what they can do with their brand, with their NIL opportunities, and getting a really high-quality signal caller. Again, a next-level NFL caliber signal caller in Riley Leonard coming from Duke. Also, Arkansas, Bobby Petrino, he's gotten his QB1. Taylen Green coming over from Boise State. I think what's interesting, guys, about Taylen Green, you look at his measurables, 6'6", 221 pounds. This guy's basically KJ Jefferson 2.0, and I think this all but guarantees that KJ Jefferson, as John Neighbors, our good friend over at Locked On Razorbacks, expects, and as our friend Brad Crawford dropped over a week ago, although KJ Jefferson has not entered the portal yet, we do fully expect him to enter the transfer portal. So Bobby Petrino gets Taylen Green from Boise State. We, of course, already knew that Dylan Gabriel, the Oklahoma transfer, he is now an Oregon Duck. Brock Vandegrift, the Georgia transfer, he is a Kentucky Wildcat. You've then got guys, Kyle McCord, the former Ohio State quarterback, visiting Nebraska. You've got Will Rogers, the former Mississippi State quarterback, visiting Washington. It's interesting, too, going back to Nebraska. Matt Rule made it very clear, $1 million, $1.5 million, $2 million. I just wonder, how much is Kyle McCord asking for from those guys? Also, guys, you've got A.J. Swann, the former Vanderbilt signal caller, visiting South Carolina. And it brings me to this, guys, and this is something that I've talked about before, because every situation is different, right? There's some situations where, you know, I think it's very obvious what you want to do, right? If you can go out in the transfer portal market and you can land a quarterback, and I think, too, it depends on the coach, right? I think there's differing philosophies. There's different philosophies for how coaches want to approach the transfer portal. Heck, there's some that don't even embrace the transfer portal. If you're a Dabo Sweeney or you're one of these other coaches out there, you'd much rather, you know, recruit from the high school ranks and develop and build your program that way. There's some out there that are portal kings, right? We've seen Ole Miss continue to crush the portal. Heck, Kentucky just got Brock Vandegrift, and they got a transfer running back from Ohio State. We've seen Florida State crush the transfer portal. So it goes school by school, coach by coach, the philosophy of how they want to attack the transfer portal. But what I think is interesting, guys, is this. I think we would all agree that the portal has created an environment in which coaches are in a win-now world, right? And I'm not talking you got to win big in year one or even year two. But how many coaches are getting 5 years to build a program? How many coaches are getting more than 5 years? I would say virtually none. Very few, depending on the program, are getting 5. Most are getting to year 3, maybe year 4, to show the real signs of progress that the fan base and the program respectively wants to see. And again, each situation is different. But I think it's fascinating. You look at a place like a South Carolina, for example, and this A.J. Swann news comes out, right, of he is visiting South Carolina. He is on campus today. He may be there as we speak. And you're going to get a mixed bag or a mixed reaction from folks of, you know, I think there will be some that They're all for competition. May the best man win. They don't care who the starting quarterback is. They just want to see their favorite team win games. Again, this could be happening at Washington. This could be happening at Nebraska. This is happening all over the place. But there's going to be some that say, hey, competition's great. Iron sharpens iron. Let's bring in all the quality players we can. Then there's going to be some people who say, absolutely not. We have our guy in this young prized freshman, right? This true freshman that we're really, really high on, that, maybe he's appeared in some game action. Maybe he hasn't. But it's just, we're kind of in an interesting place right now when it comes to recruiting that position specifically, right? Because multiple guys can play wide receiver and do play wide receiver. Multiple guys play running back. Multiple guys play tight end. Multiple guys play on defense. Quarterback is the one position where you have one guy. You have one QB1 typically. There are very few teams out there, if any, that are successful that are running 2 quarterback or 3 quarterback systems. You have your QB1 and then you have your backup, right? So it's a much different vibe. It's a much different feeling on picking up players out of the portal. And so we evaluate this situation at South Carolina, for example, where there is a large portion of the fan base, and we've talked about this before, guys. There's a large portion of the South Carolina fan base that has gone ahead and put all of their stock in. They've put all of their eggs in the Leonard Sellers basket, and they are riding with Leonard Sellers 2024 and beyond. Hey, this is his football team. The Leonard Sellers era has officially begun, and they will tell you and vouch to you. I had a guy this morning tell me that Leonard Sellers has the skill set of Cam Newton and Hendon Hooker. And guys, I understand what he was trying to say, right? In regards to, okay, he's a dual threat player. He can throw the football. He's also a big body, big physical kid. But there are fans in the South Carolina fan base that are already comparing Leonard Sellers to guys like Cam Newton and Hendon Hooker because of one throw against Furman and one run against Vanderbilt, right? But South Carolina in the market for a quarterback. A.J. Swann visiting. Heck, I was asked yesterday, Chris, should South Carolina add a quarterback in the transfer portal? And guys, I'm not saying they should go out and get someone that is going to come in and take over as QB1. That's not necessarily what I'm saying. But right now in Columbia, the quarterback room is as follows going into 2024. Leonard Sellers and Dante Reno. Luke Doty is a wide receiver in my eyes. Luke Doty, in my mind, is a wide receiver. So you've got those two guys. Maybe if you want to throw Luke Doty in, sure. But still, that does not inspire a lot of confidence when you talk about a true competition at the position. Iron sharpening iron. Leonard Sellers having to win the job. Guys, I think South Carolina, they should pick up a quarterback. I think you could vouch for picking up 2. I think picking up 2 quarterbacks in that room to, in the spirit of competition, say, hey, may the best man win. The problem you also run into, though, is how many guys in the transfer portal want to come into a situation where they're not going to be the starter. A lot of guys are leaving for opportunities to play. You're going to have a hard time selling that bag of goods to someone that, hey, by the way, we've got this young freshman we're really high on. No guarantees you're going to play. You may just come here just to sit behind somebody. But you look at what Ole Miss did last year in the transfer portal. They had Jackson Dart coming back. They added Spencer Sanders. They added Walker Howard. They said, hey, in the spirit of competition, may the best man win. And all it did was make Jackson Dart better. Iron sharpened iron. And look what happened, guys. Ole Miss went 10-2, and he had the best season of his career. Now, obviously, I am much closer to South Carolina and know a lot more about South Carolina's quarterback room than I do, say, Kentucky's or Nebraska's or Washington's. But what I think is so interesting is that even after Leonard Sellers tore up the Furman defense and had a nice run against Vandy, anybody from the outside looking in would say that South Carolina would be crazy not to add a quality starting quarterback like a KJ Jefferson. Heck, like an AJ Swann, because they want to hitch their wagon to some true freshman who, let's face it, is unproven. I mean, are Washington fans saying the same thing? Are Nebraska fans saying the same thing? How about Oregon? How about Arkansas? How about Notre Dame? How about Kentucky? And this is what I'm talking about, guys, this conundrum that college coaches face now in a win-now world. Because ideally, you would love to, and again, this is not a South Carolina thing. Let me make that very clear. This is a college football thing. Doesn't matter the school. You got this young hotshot 4 or 5-star guy, and you're really high on, you think it could be the future. Here's the problem, though, especially when you start getting into year 3, year 4, God forbid, of your tenure. Let's say you're Florida and you got DJ Lagway if Graham Mertz didn't come back or whatever it is. Like, once you start getting deeper into your tenure, right, you don't have forever to get it rolling. And when you're going especially into what people would label as a critical year 3 if you're Billy Napier, a critical year 4 if you're Shane Beamer, a critical year 5 if you're Sam Pittman. Guys, you don't really have the wiggle room to roll the dice with an unproven true freshman and say, hey, go take on this SEC slate. And if we miss a bowl game, God forbid, we can turn to the fan base and turn to everybody and say, well, I mean, we were playing a young quarterback. Just give us time. Please be patient. You and I both know college football fans have no patience. They're like bad doctors. They have no patience. So I think the conundrum that college coaches are facing right now in this win-now world of college football is this. Do I hand the keys to a true freshman that I'm really high on, and we may believe he's got all the upside in the world? Do I hand the keys to a young, unproven dude, or if I have the opportunity, do I go out into the portal and sign a proven commodity at the Power 5 level? I'm not saying he's elite, but he's a dude that has at least played college football. Maybe he's played SEC football. Maybe he's been a starter before. And I operate that way. I think it is a fascinating argument because I'm not sure there's one answer right or wrong, and you just can't completely ditch quarterback recruiting at the high school level. I mean, you're setting a really, really bad precedent. But, guys, we're seeing it in college football in the playoff. We're seeing a lot of the most successful teams, guys, their quarterbacks are coming from the portal. A lot of the best teams in college football, guys, they are portal-driven teams with transfer portal quarterbacks. I'm not saying that's everyone. I'm certainly not saying that is everyone, but we are seeing it more and more and more. And again, in this win-now world of college football, let's say you're Billy Napier going into year 3, you're Shane Beamer going into year 4, you're Sam Pittman going into year 5, whatever it is, whatever your situation, where you know that you better win and you better win now. How each of these coaches decides to operate is fascinating. How they decide to operate is fascinating because, again, do you hitch your wagon to an unproven freshman, or do you go out and get a more proven commodity in the transfer portal, but maybe in the long term, the payoff isn't as great? How do you balance? Sorry about that, guys. Developing a program behind closed doors, developing guys that you have signed through recruiting. I think it's a really, really interesting conundrum that college coaches face. And again, we're seeing teams be very, very active in the portal. But if we were looking at any other situation that was not South Carolina, maybe Arkansas fans are high on a youngster. Maybe Florida fans are high. Maybe Nebraska fans are high on a youngster. But if you have the opportunity to sign a proven commodity at the collegiate level at the quarterback position, do you really turn that down to hitch your wagon to an unproven freshman? Especially in this win-now world of college football, and especially if you're a head coach who's going into a pivotal year of your tenure. What do you do Side with the freshman or go out in the portal and find a proven commodity?